Martha's hands shook holding her old field notebook, dusty, forgotten since grad school. Across Pike Place Market's bustle, a stranger in binoculars blocked her path. "You're Birder who spotted that warbler in '92, right? We need you." Laughable. She was 58, out of practice, more familiar with coffee stains than wing patterns. But that notebook pulsed in her grip, pages whispering, "Try anyway." Seattle's urban bird collective wasn't fancy, just misfits tracking feathered neighbors, turning eco. Martha's hands shook holding her old field notebook, dusty, its edges curled like autumn leaves. Decades had passed since she'd scribbled notes on warbler migrations, back when optimism felt as abundant as morning light. Now, climate dread sat heavy in her chest, a broken car alarm no one bothered to silence. Pike Place Market's bustle felt wrong somehow, too vibrant against her gray mood. But then she spotted them, a ragtag flock of urban birders, binoculars slung like jewelry, laughing over spilled coffee. Their leader, a woman with rainbow-streaked hair, waved her over. Martha hesitated, her knees creaked louder than floorboards, but curiosity nudged her forward. Field notebook tucked under one arm, she fumbled with borrowed binoculars, nearly clocking a passerby. "Newbie vibes," someone teased, but warmth-laced words. As she focused on a sparrow's nest wedged in a neon sign, something loosened inside her. Here was proof, life stubbornly stitching itself into concrete cracks. Each sighting inked into her notebook became a rebellion against despair. That tattered journal, once a relic of younger days chasing birds with her father, now held urgent purpose. Fear still whispered, what if documenting decline was just counting losses? But scribbling a crow's clever trash can raid, she grinned. Maybe resilience wasn't grand. Maybe it was this, showing up, clumsy step by step, to witness what remained. Martha's hands shook holding her old field notebook, dusty, its edges curled like autumn leaves. Decades had passed since she'd scribbled observations with fervor of her grad school days. Now, retirement yawned before her, and headlines about melting glaciers left her chest tight. But that morning, a flash of movement outside her kitchen window caught her eye, a Steller's jay, its cobalt wings stark against Seattle's gray drizzle. Something in her twitched awake. She fumbled with binoculars, knocking over a coffee mug in her haste. Laughing herself, since when did a 58-year-old woman lunge like a kid chasing fireflies? She grabbed her notebook and scrawled sighting with shaky letters. Later, wandering Pike Place Market for distraction, she spotted a cluster of people peering upward, their vibes oddly focused. One woman, silver-haired and wearing a vest with enough pockets to smuggle a small zoo, noticed Martha's notebook and grinned. "Bird nerd?" Turns out, Urban Avian Alliance met weekly to track city-dwelling species, their data funneling into climate research. Martha hesitated, joining meant admitting how much she'd missed this, how lost she'd felt without it. But groups' chatter about osprey nests on skyscrapers and sparrow adaptations hooked her. That notebook, once a relic, became a bridge. She learned to use apps, cursed her stiff knees during long walks, and marveled how pigeons, rats with wings, she'd once scoffed, had complex social hierarchies. One rainy afternoon, she spotted a rare barred owl in Discovery Park. Her hands didn't shake this time as she recorded its haunting call. Notebook wasn't just pages anymore, it was proof she could still bear witness, still contribute. Eco-grief didn't vanish, but now it had a counterweight, purpose, inked one messy observation at a time. Martha's hands shook holding her old field notebook, dusty, its edges curled like autumn leaves. 58 years of life, half spent worrying over headlines screaming extinction, yet here she stood on her fire escape, squinting a sparrow with intensity of a detective on a caffeine bender. Urban birdwatching, her therapist had suggested. Sure, she'd scoffed. But desperation had a way of making fools of them all. Seattle's gray skies pressed down, but she pressed back. She scribbled notes with a stubby pencil, her handwriting wobbling like a toddler on roller skates. First entry, pigeon. Very fat. Possibly judging me. Not exactly Audubon material, but it was a start. Pike Place Market became her unlikely HQ. Every Tuesday, she joined a ragtag collective of eco-grievers clutching binoculars like lifelines, retired teachers, baristas with sleeve tattoos, even a former tech bro who now muttered about burb vibes with unsettling fervor. Creator fit right in. Their shared mission, track neighborhood birds, log shifts in migration, and, if they were lucky, stop feeling like world was ending over morning coffee. Missteps came hard. She once mistook a crumpled gum wrapper for a rare warbler. Another time, she spent 40 minutes stalking a mystery owl that turned out to be a particularly artsy trash bag. But each blunder carved space for laughter, and laughter carved space for hope. Her notebook filled. Sparrows, crows, even a defiant heron that haunted docks like a feathered philosopher. Data became her rebellion. Every tally was a middle finger to despair, every observation proof that life, stubborn, messy, glorious, persisted. One drizzly dawn, Martha spotted a fledgling robin struggling in a puddle. Without thinking, she scooped it onto a nearby branch, her knees protesting like rusty hinges. As it shook itself dry, she grinned. Maybe saving world started with noticing it. By summer's end, her notebook was battered, coffee-stained, and priceless. Not because it held answers, but because it proved she'd kept asking questions. Word count, 1,500, Martha's hands shook holding her old field notebook, dusty, edges frayed, ink smudged from years of neglect. Seattle's gray skies mirrored her mood, but today, something flickered. That notebook had once held her wonder, scribbled sightings of juncos and waxwings before life got too loud. Now, with headlines screaming doom, grief sat heavy in her chest. She needed to move. Pike Place Market buzzed below her apartment. Tourists gawked fish tossers, but creators spotted a different spectacle, sparrows dodging crumbs, crows eyeing unattended pastries. A grin tugged her lips. She cracked open notebook, pen hovering. One sparrow, bold as brass, hopped near her shoe. First entry in a decade, cheeky little survivor. Word got around. Next Thursday, 3 women from her building joined her, binoculars dangling like costume jewelry. By month's end, their ragtag group, mostly retirees, a few harried moms, had a name, Urban Wingbeats. Martha's notebook became gospel, pages crammed with times, species, oddball behaviors. Franklin insists that crow knows his name. Maybe it does. Skeptics scoffed, what's counting birds gonna fix? Until woman led a workshop community center, slapping down data showing how local species shifted with rising temps. Then came twist, a grainy phone video of Martha, silver hair whipping in wind, pointing out a rare heron perched on a dumpster. Look, this glamorous beast making it work, she cackled. Clip blew up, dumpster heron trended, snagging a wildlife org's attention. Suddenly, Urban Wingbeats had funding for proper surveys. Their next meetup, a former skeptic, Linda, who'd rolled her eyes hard enough to strain something, stood slack-jawed as she presented their findings. Charts proved their humble counts contributed to climate studies. Crowd erupted. Linda stammered, "You're really onto something." Martha tucked notebook under her arm, ink-stained fingers proof of purpose. This was her start. Not with grand speeches, but one stubborn bird at a time. Bonus, she tripped over a curb later, sending pens flying. Crows cackled. She joined in. Vibes, after all, were everything. Martha's hands shook holding her old field notebook, dusty, forgotten, crammed with scribbles from decades past. Now it brimmed with fresh ink, each page a rebellion against eco-grief. Seattle's drizzle couldn't dampen her newfound spark. That tattered book became her compass, guiding not just her but a ragtag flock of urban birders who met near Pike Place Market, binoculars clinking like wind chimes. 58, she'd expected quiet years, not leading midnight owl counts or teaching millennials to distinguish a crow's caw from a raven's croak. Yet here she was, rallying strangers into a collective with chaotic vibes of a jazz improv session. Her odd habit? Whispering puns to sparrows, "Fly high, little tax accountant." Because laughter, she learned, was as vital as data. Weeks turned to months. Empty lots transformed into pop-up habitats, spreadsheets bloomed with sightings. Martha's notebook, once a relic, now pulsed with community, dog-eared pages holding stories of a barred owl nesting in a parking garage, a kid's first hummingbird sighting, a widow who'd traded loneliness for thrill of tracking eagles. Even city planners took notice, weaving their findings into green spaces. One crisp dawn, Martha stood atop Cary Park, surveying skyline. Behind her, a dozen faces glowed with purpose, their shared mission stitching resilience into Seattle's concrete scenes. She grinned. Climate anxiety hadn't vanished, but it had met its match, action, wrapped in feathers and friendship. Grab your notebook, your neighborhood's waiting.